The federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, have been negotiating to reach a compromise for the reopening of all universities. However, that has not yielded any positive result, even as the federal government agreed to concede to ASU's demands. So far, incessant strikes by unions have created an unfriendly environment for learning for our youths in this country. Consequently, the issue has led to the registration of new unions for university lecturers to help guide other universities in Nigeria. Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, approved the registration of 2 new academic unions and ordered the newly registered unions to return back to the classrooms. What are the roles of these new unions that gained the approval to disband from ASU? Why did the unions reject the modus operandi of ASU? How can these new unions guarantee the demands set by ASU as new voices to blow the trumpet of ASU? These and other issues are what we will be discussing on Nigeria Today. I am Lydia Ojijochi. Thank you for joining us once more and welcome. With me in the studio is Dr. Nii Sumonu, the National Coordinator, Congress of University Academics, CONUA. Glad to have you join us on Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this evening.
Also in the studio is Dr. Mohammed Adamu Askira, the Organizing and Liaison Secretary of Nigerian Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much, and we are welcome, Nigerians.
Before we begin the conversation, let's listen to the Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, his comment at a news briefing announcing the approval for 2 more university unions that desired to disband from ASU. Take a look.
My advice is to vice chancellors is that they should not look the other way. They should allow those who are ready to work to go and work. They should open up the classrooms and laboratories for them. That is what it is. Because they are not a legal union of workers with rights and privileges. And there is no discussion that will take place in any university academic environment for academic workers, of which there are members, that will not involve them. Any discussion where ASU is invited, they should also be invited. There is no more one voice speaking now for academics in the universities. For today, there are 3 voices. And more will follow. More will follow. More are coming. More are
Okay, now let me begin with Dr. Nii Sumonu. What exactly led to the creation of these new unions for lecturers? There's been a lot of speculations, criticisms, and all that. So let's clear the air. Let's know what happened.
Once again, thank you. Good evening, Nigerians. For the Congress of University Academics, there were issues within the union we either belonged, which started in 2016. That's actually the latest one. There have been issues before, but the latest one that eventually culminated into the formation of CONUA in 2018, precisely 12th of February 2018, started in 2016, and it can be broadly divided into 2. The first one is the flagrant disregard for the constitution of the union we belong to before. The other one is the openly partisanship approach of the leadership of that union in the selection of the vice chancellor in the university. It started in Ile-Ife. Let me put that record straight. And we fought all the way up till 4th February 2018, where certain punitive pronouncements were made. Those certain punitive pronouncements certainly were not limited to suspension, and it actually involved expulsion of members. And this happened just because members dared to raise opinions or objections on issues that were not done properly in our view. I was part of those that were expelled. And the expulsion, what it meant to us is, okay, in the university environment, the constitution of this country allowed freedom of association. And when you expel an individual from a union or a group of individuals, what it then means is that those individuals are left in the cold. Nobody is to fight for their welfare. Nobody is to look at their yearnings and what have you with respect to unionization. It was there and then, at a meeting held on 12th February 2018, members decided to operate under the freedom guaranteed by the Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, to come together under the banner of CONUA. And as law-abiding citizens, we immediately, having studied the provision of the Trade Union Act within 2 months and the requirements, then forwarded application to be registered and recognized as a registered trade union to the Ministry of Labor and Employment in April 2018. And we followed through. In fact, we had about a lot of tough times, and we are elated that this eventually culminated into the recognition yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I may say that. Okay, now let me come to you, Dr. Askira. Now, do you think this disbandment from ASU would aggravate further confrontation with government?
Honestly speaking, I would not like to talk so much about ASU for too many reasons.
Okay.
One of the most important reasons is that we are not members of ASU. We have been, the medical academics have so many reasons why they need to have a platform and a voice in the academic environment. One of the many reasons, you see, is the fact that the medical education is peculiar.
Yes.
The peculiarity of the medical education is in such a way that you have the preclinicals in the universities, you have the clinicals and the basic clinical sciences in the teaching hospital, and you have the postgraduate, the postdoctoral medical education that is done in the teaching hospital and other tertiary institutions. Therefore, if you look at it critically, you can see that the peculiarity of medical education in Nigeria and the peculiarity of the academics in the milieu would not permit us to work under the modus operandi of the other unions in the system. The second issue is the emasculation and the injustice meted out in terms of entry positions, in terms of career progression, in terms of recognition of qualification of the medical academics within the academic environment. Those are, with many other reasons, are the reasons why we find that we need a platform. We need a legal tool, element that we can use to engage the government. Let me tell you the simple truth about the medical education. The medical education, as you see it from the university, it is actually the bedrock for healthcare delivery in Nigeria. The WHO recommendation for doctor population ratio for developing countries like Nigeria is 1:600 population. What we have in Nigeria is 1:5,000. In other regions like the far northeast where I came from, is 1 to like 7,000 to 15,000 population. So it's telling you we have dearth of medical manpower.
Yes.
And it is through this university system, through the academics, that we produce the medical manpower. Therefore, if you look at it critically, for us to meet the WHO recommendation, it means Nigeria must be producing every year nothing less than 10,000 medical doctors for the next 30 to 35 years, if the population or other indices remain constant. Now we are producing just 2,000 to 2,500 to 3,000 in a year. And all of a sudden, there is interruption, prolonged interruption in the process of producing this number of medical doctors. Therefore, how do you expect the healthcare sector to function? And let me tell you, the medical doctors, the young doctors that are produced, they are we call them the house officers. They form the bedrock for healthcare services in our tertiary institutions.
And they are living.
And even the case of brain drain.
Yes.
So the truth is, when we look at it critically, actually even our elders, medical elders for a long time, they have been working hard to see that how do we get a voice that can talk on behalf of the medical academics in the system. But because, you know, doctors are gentlemen, even if we are emasculated, even if we are rendered injustice, we believe that our service is for humanity and our reward in the heaven. We've been following through all these years for decades. But we have come to a stage that we discovered that we cannot partake in destruction of the system, destruction of the education. Let me tell you, recently, some years back, in the University of Jos, there was even a time when they said the university unions and the other gangs up against the medical doctors that if you don't have a PhD, you will not become a VC. Why? And our postgraduate actually our MBBS, even the NUC had put the MBBS graduate degree with a PhD at par, the inter at lecturer too. But they are now telling us that the postgraduate medical qualification we added is now less than a PhD. How is that? What type of arithmetic is? I'm not a mathematician, but I know with this type of mathematics, there is a clear sense of injustice. Our medical elders in University of Jos through the NMA had to fight this battle up to the Supreme Court. Okay. So this actually quagmire of injustice and emasculation made the bedrock for our struggles. But the simple truth is that since, like in Maiduguri, let me be categorically clear to you, at the beginning of this strike, we had a meeting and the clinical lecturers in University of Maiduguri had written to the authorities in the university and the teaching hospital that we were not taking part in this strike. And we continue rendering our services. After four months, even though there was no work, no pay, we said no problem. But after 4 months, we discovered and we realized that any strike action that exceeded 3 months, it is no longer a struggle, it is a sabotage. So we cannot sabotage our system. We cannot sabotage our education and our profession. So we now went to the government and told the government that we are working, and we want our remuneration. Let me tell you, we approached the right authorities and the clinical lecturers in Maiduguri have been paid their salaries and they have been doing their work. And we had another meeting and we had written to the university authority that we are not part of us. So we are looking for a legal tool, and God has given us an opportunity, and a dawn has come to us, a patriotic dawn for us to liberate the medical education and the health sector.
Thank God for that. It's a new dawn. Now, let's take a break here. We'll be back to talk some more.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms.
Start Times Channel 101, Free TV Channel 703, GSTV Channel 419, and Go TV Channel 46.
For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24,
news and more news.
Welcome back. You are watching Nigeria Today, and our focus is on the two new unions in the Nigerian universities. I still have my two guests from the Nigerian Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA, Dr. Mohammed Adamu Askira and Dr. Niyi Sumonu from the Congress of University Academics, CONUA. Yes, we heard from the Minister of Labor and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, talking about anytime there are negotiations, CONUA should be there, NAMDA would be there. Now, these two unions, it just means that these two unions will be recognized just as other academic unions and still receive similar rights and privileges to function effectively. Okay, now, how do you hope to hit the ground running?
Yeah, thank you very much. What happened yesterday was like the birth of a new baby. And we cherish that. We're going to nurture that. And the way to nurture it so that we don't disappoint ourselves and by extension our universities and our country, Nigeria, is to look at issues, negative issues in the university education sector. And one of it, honestly speaking, is the issue of open and close of our tertiary institutions. There are a lot of academic publications out there that have spoken in concrete terms of the negatives of the open and closed nature of our universities, the negative effect that far outweighed whatever positive outcome that academics get from it. I'll give an instance now. The universities have been closed for the past 8 months, going into 9 months. Classes are not abated. They tell me any house, any accommodation that is not abated for 8 months, thereabout, you need some renovation. If you take it as even just a one room. So we have our hostels in the universities, we have our classrooms, sometimes we have offices. So that's one of the negatives, not to talk of the negatives on a critical stakeholder, a critical sector, which is the student itself. For example, what you have taught in the last 8 months, and if it's the mid-semester, that's at the mid of the semester that this industrial action started, the students will have forgotten, justifiably so. So, not to talk of the disinterest it engenders in our young minds. So just to mention a few. So we have identified that, and we feel that these negatives, this negative trend has to be stemmed, has to be aborted. And one of the things we're bringing to the table is to use different approaches or a different approach to bring about the issues in the universities, the attention of those to the government. And we believe that even in situations where there are outright wars, history has told us that those wars eventually ended at a table. So it is very important as a first start to believe that the idea of negotiation in good faith can yield results.
So when will you go back to work?
Oh, that question is not applicable to CONUA. CONUA has never been. This has been said time and time and time again. CONUA has never been on strike. We are only hampered because universities were closed. I gave this example of myself, you start from me, that even before this, our university was closed down. I had already concluded my lectures. So also some other, colleagues. So the question is not applicable to us. We are not on strike. We are just hoping that the universities will be opened for us to do our duties.
Dr. Askira, let me ask you now. Media sources have given reports of mistreatment and misappropriation of funds in universities. How true is this in undermining the implementation of standard policies in the education system?
You know, from the background I come from, that is the health sector and the medical background, and we've all been Nigerians, we know, we are all aware that to a substantial extent, there are cases or reportages of mismanagement, misappropriation of funds in MDS. Not only the universities, in almost all the MDS. And that was why, as medical doctors, as far back as 2014 to 2016, we agitated that we wanted to be a role on IPPIS because we do not want any MDA to use us to blot their personnel cost for the purpose of siphoning funds. So we believe that the use of the IPPIS will go a long way in data capturing and curtailing the menace of bloated personnel cost and siphon hemorrhage of our Commonwealth. Definitely there are cases and reportages. However, it is now left for the government, because the truth is, when you see a situation like in the MDAs, in the department and ministries and agencies, when you see their corruption perpetrated, definitely if it is from a university, for instance, or a teaching hospital, there is always a connivance with other government officials in the ministries and other agencies. The chief executives cannot misappropriate on their own. To be candid, it is a cartel that involves a lot of persons. To be fair, to be sincere, is that if you accuse a university system or any MDA agency for corruption, for them to do that corruption, it means they must have captured it in the appropriation. So you know the cycle of appropriation. We know what happens and how they pad it, how they round trip it, and so on and so forth. So the issue of corruption is not only with the universities and other agencies of government. It's a cartel that involves other people. You see, the university cannot do it alone. You can trace it to some people in the ministries, some people in other agencies like the NUCs and other regulatory agencies. The VCs alone and the chief executives of all these agencies cannot do it alone. So it is now left for government to put in mechanism. One of such mechanisms, as I told you, and that which we can talk about, it is the things to do with personnel. Things to do with other infrastructure, we cannot talk too much about. For personnel, we said we want to be enrolled on IPPIS. And honestly speaking, since when doctors were enrolled on the IPPIS, go and see in all hospitals, in all the agencies in Federal Ministry of Health, cases of issues to do with personnel salaries at the agencies, at the hospitals have drastically minimized. And people are getting exactly their entitlement. Even the resident doctors, they are getting their remuneration as well as their package for sponsorship through the IPPIS without so much rancor. So, to be candid, government is having this burden of putting in policy and ensuring they enforce it. Because as I identified to you the issue of IPPIS, it worked for us. And everybody, even the chief executives are happy now. The issues of remuneration is no longer in their hands. And the workers are happy. They are getting their emolument and entitlement at the right time, as at when due. So I think it is left for the government to implement and put check and balance, make it watertight.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Dr. Oni, let's hear your closing remarks or your last take on the two unions and what they will bring differently to the table as we round up.
Yeah, as I would just allude to what I said the other time. The other side of it is that you now have evaluation, interrogation of problems in the university from at least different perspectives now. In each of the union, you have members discussing the problems and how to solve the problems within their union, coming up with a resolution. That resolution will represent one voice. At a table, you then have the opportunity to look at that problem once again from the perspective of the resolution of each of the union. And in academic environment, you are always elated, you're always happy when you have a lot of solutions to one problem, because you will be at liberty to take the best of the solution that will give you win-win situation.
Thank you very much. So I know that we have better days ahead in our tertiary institutions.
Definitely.
Thank you very much for coming. This is where we call it. We wish to add more time on this. That's all we can have on this episode. Our appreciation goes to Dr. Niyi Sumonu. He is the National Coordinator, Congress of University Academics, CONUA. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you very much for having me this evening.
And Dr. Mohammed Adamu Askira is the Organizing and Liaison Secretary of Nigerian Association of Medical and Dental Academics, NAMDA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
And
so much for your time.
Nigerians.
And to you, our viewer, we appreciate you always for being a part of our conversations all the time. You can also watch this episode and other ones at www.youtube.com/NTNews24hub. I am Lydia Odijochi. Thank you for sharing your time with us. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.
project that the Buhari administration